Hello, my name is Natalie Quintana, and today I'm going to be talking about Sweden's disaster management system. To start, Sweden's current national system is officially known as the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, or the MSB, and it was first established on January 1st, 2009. Its main objective is to facilitate coordination of measures for prevention, preparedness, and response across all levels of government. Before the MSB, Sweden's disaster management was made up of the Swedish Emergency Management Agency, the Swedish Rescue Services, and the National Board of Psychological Defense. The Swedish system for disaster management is based on an all hazards approach, meaning that Sweden takes into consideration every possible disaster that could take place when planning for risk mitigation efforts and response capabilities. The main aspect of this approach is carried out by Sweden's continuous national risk assessments. By basing themselves on this approach, the MSB ensures that all levels of government are flexible enough to work through any disaster. Sweden's disaster management exhibits a bottom up implementation pattern that is based on three principles: the principle of proximity, the principle of responsibility, and the principle of similarity. To start, the principle of proximity states that crises and disasters should be managed by agencies closest to those affected, and it is primarily seen applied with the local government. The principle of responsibility expresses that in situations of disaster, Swedish agencies should retain their usual responsibilities and should support disaster efforts when necessary, and it is primarily seen applied with the regional and national government. Lastly, the principle of similarity, which is applied by all levels of government, is used to prevent any undesired confusion that could slow down relief efforts during disaster events. Sweden is particularly vulnerable to natural disasters like floods, landslides, severe storms, and wildfires. When it comes to floods, one of the things that the MSB does is create general flood inundation mapping to highlight the areas that are at high risk for flooding. And similar to landslides, the MSB creates general stability maps to help determine which areas are the most prone to landslides. For storms and wildfires, the main focus revolves around early warning systems and having information readily available to the public, which is made possible with the help of the Swedish Meteorological and Hydrological Institute. Participants in Sweden's disaster management agency include government agencies, non-governmental organizations, and international organizations. The government agencies involved in Sweden's disaster management are the Swedish Meteorological and Hydrological Institute, the Public Health Agency of Sweden, Sweden's Crisis Management Council, and Sweden's Ministry of Defense. The NGOs involved are the Swedish Red Cross, World Wildlife Fund Sweden, Friends of the Earth Sweden, and the main international NGO involved is Oxfam. A major weakness associated with the Swedish disaster management system, while it is something they are working on, is the lack of technology that is used in information and decision processes during disasters. For example, in a study conducted in Linköping University, the students found that there was a lack of a set singular technological system that could be used to gather information on disaster events. Lastly, disasters have strongly shaped disaster management and disaster policy in Sweden. For example, the most informative tool for disaster preparedness is known as the If Crisis or War Comes brochure. The brochure contains information for a variety of risks that range from floods to terror attacks. And a prime example of a disaster policy in Sweden is the Seveso Act, which was implemented after the 1976 disaster where a chemical malfunction in Italy led to the release of a chemical cloud in the atmosphere. Overall, while the Swedish disaster management may have its minor flaws, its consistent organization and communication is what ensures that it will be a successful system for years to come. Thank you.